Well, hello there, my fellow rushers. How are you doing today? King Rex here, and today we're gonna be making a video that wasn't really supposed to happen, but due to some unexpected turn of events, we're making this instead. Originally, I was planning on showcasing some of the mod changes that I made for Kingdom Rush Vengeance, but unfortunately, some of the changes didn't save, so yeah, that sucks. And sadly, that video is gonna be delayed for tomorrow. But I dug up something when I was searching through my Google Drive. It's an old hero design that I've made, and he was created, I think, last year, somewhere around there. I know it was 2022 when I made it, but I don't remember the exact date. So his name is Ornn, and he's a hero for Kingdom Rush Origins. And if you've played League of Legends, you probably can tell that this is a reference to a champion from that game, and he is pretty busted in there. And I was like, how would he function if he was in Kingdom Rush Origins? Because Origins is my favorite Kingdom Rush game, so I decided to put him in here and see what I can do. And yeah, we're gonna be checking out the design. Now, I'm not gonna bother with the lore because there are about 9 pages worth of lore, and most people probably don't really care. But if you're interested in the lore and you want to just check it out for yourselves, I guess I can leave a link to this down in the description and you can check it out. But anyway, without any further ado, let's just check out what I've made last year. So, at level 10, he has 590 health with 70% resistances. Now, resistances, as you see at the bottom text right here, this means both armor and magic resistance. So, yeah, he's basically a raid boss. Imagine having so much health with high armor and high magic resistance. Well, that doesn't sound completely and utterly busted at all. No. It's completely fine. But still, poison and true damage is still gonna affect them, so there's that. Damage type physical, so he deals physical damage 69 to 90 damage every 1 second. So he has pretty respectable DPS, definitely on the high end. Movement speed is 3, which is about the same as Bruce, so, medium to slowish movement speed and respawn time of 25 seconds, which is pretty long when compared to other heroes, but you're gonna see why he has such a long respawn time. Starting off with probably his most busted trait, the passive, or innate ability, Living Forge. The cooldown is from 90 to 60 seconds and is based on level, so at level 10, you can use your passive every 60 seconds. Now, the description here is a bit vague, but basically, you can select a tower, if it's a tier 4, and upgrade it. And this tower is gonna get bonus stats. And you can upgrade one of its abilities, so it becomes it gets an additional effect basically. And if the thing is that if you, let's say you get tier 1 burst arrows and you give the upgrade, if you give it at that point, the mythic effect still applies. So even if you upgrade to tier 2 and tier 3, the mythic upgrade is still gonna scale with it. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, let's jump into the tower upgrades and see how busted I've made this. So, starting off with the Arcane Archers, here's how it's gonna look like. So, the upgrades. As far as damage goes, it goes from 24 to 38, all the way up to 27 to 45, and the attack speed goes from 0.8 to 0.6, and the range gets buffed by quite a bit. Now, here are the mythic upgrades that I was talking about. The way I listed them is based on the order. So this thing is for the burst arrows, and this one is for the sleeping arrows. So yeah, that's how it's gonna be for every tower. Now here's the description. Pixie's Blessing. After the arrow makes contact with its target, all enemies struck by it receive 20, 30, and then 50% slow for 1.5, 2, and then 2.5 seconds. So on top of the AoE attack, you also get a pretty decent slow, which is nifty. If you have an artillery tower right next to it, it's gonna be pretty juicy. And then there's the Dizzying Poison. So here's what it does. After the sleep arrow finishes, the enemy will get drowsy and have 50, 60, and then 70% chance to miss their attacks for 5, 7, and 10 seconds. Well, that's a little bit on the busted side. You basically make the enemy miss more than half of its attacks on you for 10 seconds. Now that's not yeah, that seems balanced. Anyway, let's see what we have here for the Golden Longbow. So here are the base stats. The attack damage from long range gets increased from 45 to 60, all the way up to 55 to 75, and at short range, it gets increased from 15 to 20 to 18 to 25. As far as the attack speed goes, it goes down from 1.5 to 1.2 at long range, and at short range it goes all the way down from 1.7 to 0.7 to 0.5 seconds. And the attack range gets increased by quite a decent amount. Now for the mythic upgrades. Oh no, I remember those. So here's the first one, Ferocious Execution. The insta-kill chance increases by 1, 1.5 and 2%, 0.5, 0.75 and then 1% if shooting at close range, for every golden longbow on the map. Well, yeah, that was something. Upon executing an enemy, all nearby enemies close to the target, a range of 140, become feared, making them run backwards for 2, 3 and then 4 seconds. So on top of having a higher chance of an insta-kill, you also fear nearby enemies. Awesome. Now let's see the next one, Precise Strike. So here's what it does. Makes the Hunter's Mark target the enemy with the highest threat level, aka the one with the most health in its radius. Upon marking the enemy, all nearby towers will prioritize the marked enemy. So basically you get smart targeting on the Hunter's Mark, and you also make your towers prioritize the target with the Hunter's Mark on, which is really good. That's probably one of the more balanced upgrades, because trust me, there are a lot more busted things than what you see here. Let's move on to the Blade Singers. So their health gets increased all the way up to 280. The damage is 18 to 24. The attack speed gets reduced to 0.8 seconds. They get 10% armor increase. In this case, the armor goes all the way up to 70%. And the respawn rate decreases by a bit. Here are the mythic upgrades, Hell of Blades. Upon countering enemies' attacks, the Blade Singer will gain an increased attack speed by 25, 35, and then 50% for his next 2, 3, and then 4 attacks. That's probably not the best way to phrase it, but you get the idea. The next few basic attacks are gonna come out faster. So for the next couple attacks, you get 0.4 second attack speed, which is pretty darn strong. Blessed Steel. So that's the middle path upgrade. Now every 5th attack deals an additional 30 to 46 magic damage, so you get a little bit of extra burst damage here. Assassin's Dance. So that's the last ability. Each Blade Dance strike has a 25, 35 and then 50% chance to strike a vital part of the enemy, making him bleed for 3 to 4 and then 5 seconds, while dealing 10, 15 and 25 true damage per second. Yep, that seems quite strong to be honest. That's over 100 true damage if you get the bleed going, which is pretty nice. Like if you get it on someone like I don't know, one of the golems or elite harassers. I'm playing too much Vengeance. Twilight harassers, that would be pretty good. Now here comes the Forest Keepers. So let's see what I've done here. So their base health goes up to 410. Their melee attack damage goes from 35 to 55 with 1 second attack speed. And their range attack increases all the way up to 53 to 85 with 2.5 seconds attack speed, which is good. And their armor gets increased all the way up to 18%, and the respawn rate goes down to 10 seconds. Moving on to the mythic upgrades, Adaptive Force. Each Oak Spear that strikes the same target deals an additional 2, 3, and then 5%, up to 50% max damage. So yeah, you basically do 50% bonus damage. If you get that many spears, of course, because, let's be honest, most enemies are not gonna survive that many spears. They're probably just gonna die, unless it's a boss. And speaking of that, the bonus damage is only half as efficient against bosses, so still, you can get all the way up to 25% bonus damage from the true damage on the Oak Spears, which is a lot. Nature's Backlash. Once the enemy enters the area created by the Eerie Gardener ability, they have a 35 and then 50% chance of stepping on a Vengeful Vine. Upon stepping on it, the target becomes rooted for 1.3 and then 1.6 seconds. So a root in this case, they can't move, but they can still use their abilities and basic attacks if there's a ally unit if there is a unit in range. Let's see the next one, Overheal. Oh, that sounds good. The healing power of each Forest Keeper gets increased by 5, 7, and then 10%. This includes the base health, regeneration, and healing power of the Circle of Life ability. Plus, any additional health given by the Circle of Life gets converted into a shield that lasts for 3, 4, and then 5 seconds or until it gets destroyed. Well, that sounds ridiculously good because the healing from the Circle of Life is really high. Like, I think it goes all the way up to 180 health over the duration. But if you don't, like, for example, let's say you kill the enemy and for the next 2 seconds you heal for nothing, like your full health. Instead of wasting that heal, now it gets converted into a shield. So that sounds pretty cool. Now let's see the next one, Wild Magus. So the base damage gets increased to 14 to 25. The attack speed goes down to 0.2 seconds, so now he goes very even faster. And the attack range gets pretty decently increased. Now let's move on to the mythic upgrades. Eldritch Ascension, so that's the insta-kill. Upon killing an enemy with the Eldritch Doom, the Wild Magus will become empowered for 4, 5, and then 6 seconds, making its basic attacks ignore 50, 75, and then 100% of magic resistance. So if you get this maxed out, every time you insta-kill somebody for 6 seconds, you basically deal true damage. Wow, that's awesome. Eldritch Cleanse. Enemies affected by the Ward of Disruption get silenced for additional 3, 4, and then 5 seconds based on the number of enemies affected by it. Minimum bonus is 5 seconds and the maximum bonus is 30 seconds, so yeah. You just basically get a much longer silence duration. And it actually gives you a good idea to max out the ability because, I mean, 30 seconds worth of silence, that's a lot. And the ability already silences enemies for 10 seconds, so it's near, I mean, come on. How is an enemy gonna live for 40 seconds if you have good defense? They shouldn't, so it's basically perma-silence. High Elven Mage. So the base damage goes up to 55 to 108, the attack speed goes down to 1.2 seconds, and the attack range gets a little bit better. Like here, the range gets increased to 430, but for the Elven Mage it gets slightly more, like 10 extra range, which isn't gonna be that noticeable, but it's there. Now here come the mythic upgrades. Oh boy, Banishing Cast. Enemies who get caught in the time-lapse ability get teleported back down the path by 20, 26, 31, and then 14 nodes. So now you have a teleport on top of the other thing. If the target has 5% health or less, they get banished into the abyss, instantly killing them. Wow, okay. Now that's absolutely disgusting. High Elven Mages are gonna be OP if Ornn was invented in the Kingdom Rush Origins. Imagine you have something like, I don't know, let's say, what was it called? Bandersnatch? Imagine you have a Bandersnatch at low health and you use this ability on them. They just disappear. They're gone. That's awesome. And then there's the Relentless Pursuit. Each Arcane Sentinel gets increased movement speed by 15, 20, and then 30%. Additionally, each attack from the Sentinel slows enemies by 10, 15, and then 20% for 2, 3, and 4 seconds. So yeah, the Sentinel just gets it gets better mobility, and it gets a slow on its basic attack, which is, you know, nice. So, let's see what we have for the Archdruid Henge. So, the base damage gets increased to 41 to 69, the attack speed goes down to 1.4, and the range gets a little bit better. Now here are the upgrades. Guardian Stance. Ally units standing near the Ruined Bears, range of 100, gain 5, 7, and 12% bonus armor and magic resistance, and for each unit affected by this aura, the Ruined Bear gains 2, 3, and then 4% bonus health. Yeah, that's pretty busted when you think about it. Like, you can have such a strong choke point because not only are your units gonna be more resistant to damage, the Ruined Bears are gonna have more health, so they're gonna be pretty solid frontline if you have a lot of units near them. Spirits Unbound. If a unit affected by the Sylvan Curse gets killed, the curse will spread to enemies near him, range of 320. Wow, that's actually pretty big. This effect cannot be replicated to the enemies affected by the explosion for obvious reasons. Cough cough, Bone Hard Plague Carrier's cough. I mean, yeah, imagine if it did though, you'll basically instantly clear the lane. That will be pretty busted, but still, that's really OP in and of itself. Like, you spread the Sylvan Curse in a pretty wide range to other enemies. So if you have like a gigantic horde of Twilight Harassers coming at you, you just use this ability, you kill one of them, and then boom, everybody has it. That will be pretty disgusting for clearing up hordes, that's for sure. Speaking of wave control, we have the Withered Wood, Giggity. So the damage gets increased to 94 to 143, the attack speed goes down to 3 seconds, and the range gets a little bit better. Moving on to the upgrades. Aftershock. If an enemy doesn't get stunned by the clubber, he becomes slowed by 50, 60, and then 70%, decaying over 1.5 and then 2 seconds. However, if they are stunned, the armor and magic resistance becomes weakened by 10, 15, and then 20%, plus 1% for each 10% of the missing health of their missing health for 3, 4, and then 5 seconds. So yeah, that's actually really interesting. No, so if you don't get the stun, the enemies are just heavily slowed for a bit. But if they're stunned, you reduce their resistances, and the amount of resistance you reduce gets higher based on how much health they're missing. So if you have like an enemy that's really low, let's say 10% health, pretty much all of his resistances are gone for 5 seconds. That's pretty nutty. Speaking of nutty, Unhinged Rage. So let's see what this thing does. The Burning Nut can bounce up to 1, 2, and then 3 times as long as it keeps hitting enemies. Okay, well that's disgusting. The direction of it will always be towards where the enemies spawn, makes sense. Also, the Scorched Ground left by the Burning Nut deals 10 to 15, 15 to 20, and then 20 to 30% bonus damage based on enemies missing health. Whoa. It deals max bonus damage if the target has 10% remaining HP or less. I'm not sure how I phrased it like this, but okay, I suppose it makes sense. Additionally, every enemy killed by the initial blast reduces the cooldown of this ability by 0.5, 1, and then 1.5 seconds. Oh my. So if you have a bunch of low tier enemies coming at you and you use this ability, you can... I mean, I don't remember what the cooldown of the Burning Nut is from the top of my head, but still... Like, you can pretty much spam... You can get multiple casts of this ability instantly, as long as you kill enough enemies. Yeah, that's really good. Now moving on to the secondary or bonus towers. Starting off with the Awok Hut. So here are their upgraded stats with the Forlorn. Their health goes up to 160, their melee damage gets increased to 5 to 12 with 0.8 seconds attack speed, and then ranged attack gets all the way up to 25 to 32 with 1 second attack speed. Now, the mythic upgrade for them is Last Stand, which basically does this. Once an Awok warrior gets below 40% health, he deals 6, 8, 9, and then 11% more damage. The reason why it's 4 is because you can get up to 4 Awok warriors, and if you have 4 Awok warriors, you're gonna get the maximum efficiency, in this case 11% more damage, which is pretty good. You know, they're very squishy, so they're gonna get low health pretty quickly if you leave them unguarded, which you can do intentionally. Like, you can leave them into battle, get them below 40% health, move them back, and let them use their ranged attack with the 11% bonus damage. Moving on to the Griffin Rider. So it doesn't get any bonus stats, obviously, because obviously it's not a tower. It's kind of interactable, I guess. But here's what the upgrade will do. Makes each Griffin Rider appear 50% more often. Well, that's good. It's gonna make the level even easier now. The Fairy Dragon Aerie. So here are the mythic upgrades for it. The Alpha Co. I like that. When 3 or more enemies are in range of the tower, the bigger and stronger Fairy Dragon will spawn and fight for 4 and then 6 seconds. His basic attack will apply crystallization in a small area, able to affect up to 3 and then 5 enemies at once. He cannot spawn back until 22 seconds after he was previously summoned. So assume after the duration, which is 6 seconds, ends, that's when the cooldown starts ticking. So so I think that's how it works. Sticky Crystals. Enemies who walk near the enemy who has been crystallized have 20 and then 30% chance to become rooted for 0.7 to 1.2 seconds. Range of 80 from the crystallized target. Well, that's pretty cool. So if you crystallize an enemy, there's a small chance that you can immobilize other enemies nearby. Even though it's for a very brief duration, it could help. Moving on to the Gnome Garden. Let's see what the upgrades do. Void Echoes. Every 5th, 4th, or in this case when it's maxed out, 4th spell procs a rift to open beneath the enemy. Afterwards, 2 to and then 4 magic bolts will come out of it, seeking targets nearby, with each bolt dealing 25 and then 35 magic damage. So Basically, every fourth gnome ability will proc this thing, and that's pretty cool. You know, just adds a nice little bit of extra damage. Possession of Revolution. Interesting. I'm not sure why I named it that, but okay. So here's what it does. Each gnome will have 11, 17, and then 22% chance to perform one of their most deadly spells, Possession. The spell would manipulate the enemy's mind, making him walk back down the path for 4, 5, and then 6 seconds with 50% increased movement speed. If he gets close to another enemy, he will engage him. So that's pretty good. 50% bonus movement speed while running backwards, and being able to fight others. That's kind of cool. It's kind of an interesting combination of the possession ability from the Mausoleum and the Fear of the Dragon ability from Biriset. At least that's what I see it as. Dragon Nest. Wait, Dragon Nest? What is that? Oh wait, that's young Biriset, bruh. I haven't played Origins in forever, I forgot what this even means. Okay, let's see what it does. So the base stats, it goes from 450 HP to 600. The armor gets increased to 55%. The base damage gets increased to 112 to 169. Wow, that's a pretty significant damage increase right there. And the attack speed goes down to 2 seconds, with the respawn time also going down to 8 seconds. Here are the mythic upgrades. Force of Nature. Every 6th, 5th, and then 4th activation of the Blazing Breath will be empowered. Empowered Blazing Breath is going to have 20, 32, and then 45% increased area of effect, as well as the ability to leave a scorched ground after the Blazing Breath is over. Enemies staying in the scorched ground will take 18, 32, and then 47 true damage per second. The scorched ground will last for 5 seconds. Well, that sounds pretty cool. So you basically get something like the Rain of Fire or scorched ground effect. The only difference is that instead of physical damage, it deals true damage, which is the way it should have worked originally, but still. I like that. Next, we have Volcanic Cinder. If an enemy stays in the fiery mist for the whole duration, a portion of his armor will get melted, causing him to lose 30% of his armor for 6 seconds. So it only melts armor, not magic resistance. Interesting. That's kinda cool. Young Biriset. Let's see what the mythic upgrades does. Conflagrate. Okay. I'm gonna be honest, I just copied that from Kingdom Rush Vengeance, because that's the name of one of its abilities. Lol. Creativity right here. Anyway, here's what it does. Biriset's flames stay on the path for 25% longer. Okay, I mean, it's not much, but it's something. Renegade Post. Oh, I remember this tower. I loved it. Let's see what I've done with it. So with the upgrade, it gets 240 HP, 70% armor. The damage in melee range gets increased to 90 to 26 with 1.3 seconds attack speed, and the range attack increases to 16 to 21 damage every 1.3 seconds, and the respawn rate goes down to 12 seconds. Here's what the upgrades do. Legendary Bloodline. Each Twilight Elf from the Renegade Post, I'm not sure why I call them Twilight Elves. Were they Twilight Elves? I know they're elves, but are they from the Twilight fiction? I don't know. Let's just leave it at that. So let's see what they do. So they gain 20, 25, and then 30% lifesteal from their basic attacks. Damn. Well, that sounds pretty busted. I mean, they don't do a lot of damage, but still. Getting that extra lifesteal sounds very good. Lord Dominic's Daggers. Upon using a ranged attack, the Renegade Post units will deal an additional 15% bonus damage to enemies with more max health than them. Oh, that sounds awesome. Like, imagine this against something like a Golem. That would do a lot of damage. I like that. Unbreakable Will. When one of the units from the Renegade Post falls below 30% health or lower, he will gain 12, 25, and then 40% damage reduction from all sources for 3, 4, and then 5 seconds. Wow. That sounds disgusting. It's pretty busted. Like, getting damage reduction for 5 seconds when you're low, that's pretty nifty. Moving on to the next one, Bastion. Bastion? What was the Bastion? Let me remember. I think they appear in Galadriel's Wall, right? In the mini campaign? Yeah, I remember that. Okay, so the attack damage gets slightly increased. It goes up to 14 to 22, and the attack speed gets increased, so that's cool. And here's the upgrade, Cyrilda's Grudge. Basic attacks from the Bastion will slow enemies it struck by 15 and then 30% for 1 and then 1.5 seconds. Every third attack will ignore 20 and then 30% of the enemy's armor. Wow. I mean, you lose one of the Bastions, so you probably don't want to upgrade that one, but the other one, I would definitely upgrade it. I mean, that's so good. Every third attack getting 30%, ignoring 30% armor while also slowing. That's pretty dope. Now, those are all the towers finally. Now we finally can move on to the basic abilities. Yeah, that's just the passive. Don't worry, the basic abilities are not as nearly as long as the passive, so hopefully that's the case here. So let's see the abilities. The first one is called Volcanic Rupture. It has 12 seconds cooldown, and here's what it does. Ornn smashes his hammer into the ground, creating a fissure. Enemies struck by it take 120, 180, and then 250 physical damage and become slowed by 20, 30, and then 40% for 2 seconds. Upon reaching its max range, 150 with the starting point being Ornn, a magma pillar will erupt out of the ground. Enemies standing near it become stunned for 1 second. If they're on top of it, they get knocked back by 10, 14, and 18 nodes. Well, that's a pretty strong ability. You do some damage, you slow them, and if somebody's near the pillar, it gets stunned for a brief moment, and if they're on top of the pillar when it pops up, they get knocked back. That's cool. Now here's the second ability, and I remember that this thing was disgusting. Let's see if I remember it correctly. Melting Breath, 20 seconds. Here's what it does. When 2 or more enemies are near Ornn, he will unleash his Fire Breath facing forward, dealing 200, 260, then 340 magic damage, becoming immobile for 2 seconds. Enemies who stand in it for the whole duration into this ability become brittled for 3 seconds. Brittle enemies are 10, 20, and then 30% less resistant towards any slow, stuns, or debuffs. Additionally, if a brittle enemy gets stunned or struck by Ornn's basic attacks, the mark gets consumed, dealing 12, 14, and 16% of their max health as magic damage. Yeah, that's awesome. Probably one of the most busted abilities in Kingdom Rush ever. Now, keep in mind, it's magic damage, so enemies with high magic resistance are not gonna take nearly as much damage as someone with, like, no magic resistance, but still. That will be one of the most busted abilities to ever take down the Twilight Golems. 16% of their max health, just gone. It disappears. Plus, the 30% less resistance towards any, debuffs and stuns and slows, that's pretty good. Because, for example, if you stun someone for 1 second, now they're gonna be stunned for 1.3 seconds. That's cool. I like that idea. Moving on. Surging Charge. 15 seconds cooldown. Ornn steadies himself, charging forward, range of 130, 180, and then 240 based on the level of this ability. Every enemy caught in it takes 80, 120, and then 165 physical damage. Upon reaching the max range of his dash, Ornn smashes the ground, stunning all enemies near him for 1, 2, and then 3 seconds. Well, that's not bad. It's kind of like the Bull Rush of Kaz, but a little different. Instead of stunning every enemy he passes through, he only stuns the enemies at the very end. So I can see this ability being really good for microing, because depending on where you position him, he's gonna strike a different direction. So you can put him ahead of time where you think the enemies are gonna be. Like if you see a big horde of enemies coming at you, you position Ornn, he dashes in, and then you use him for the stun, which could be nice. Moving on to his fourth ability, Sunfire Aegis. So it's a passive this time. It's not an activatable. It's not an ability on a cooldown. Here's what it does. Ornn emanates heat from his volcanic armor, dealing 8, 14, and 20 magic damage to nearby enemies per second. Why didn't they put the range? Okay, but that's probably the thing I shouldn't be complaining about, because still, 20 magic damage per second, as long as the enemies are in close proximity to you. Well, that doesn't seem completely and utterly busted. Oh, I love that. Because keep in mind, he also deals pretty decent damage. Like, he deals between 69 to 90 physical damage every second. So, yeah, adding that extra 20 magic damage on top of that, I love it. But here's the last ability, the ultimate Call of the Forge God. Ooh, 145, 120, 105, then goes all the way down to 85 seconds. Now, let's see what the ability does. Ornn calls... wait, I can't speak. Sheesh. Anyway, Ornn calls an elemental to come forward. The elemental, which would look like a giant ram, ooh, interesting, would charge forward towards Ornn from the entrance of the lane in which Ornn is. if he is at an intersection, the chance from which lane the ram would come from is 50-50. Okay. Anyone caught in its path takes 160, 122, 120, 160, 220, 285, and then 340 magic damage, and they get marked as brittled for 2, 3, 4, and then 5 seconds. When the ram reaches Zoran, he sends it back down the path with 20, 30, 40, and then 50% increased speed. Enemies who are hit by it take an additional, basically they take the same damage, in this case 340 magic damage when they get strike again, and get stunned for 0.5, 1, 1.5, and then 2 seconds. If the target is still brittle, the ram consumes the mark and reapplies it after it stamps over it. Stamps? I mean, I guess after it runs through them. I think that's what I was trying to say here. However, if the mark is gone, the ram just reapplies it. Ornn can be moved towards the elemental to send it back faster. Wow. That would be pretty dope. Like, that's the total amount of damage that you're gonna do with this ability is 680 base. And you know, 680 magic damage is pretty respectable. But then you also add the brittle procs. And if you get the bolt brittle procs at the same time, that's 32% of the enemy's max health gone. Like, bruh. Yeah. I think this ability should have 145 seconds at tier 4. Like, this is so busted. Imagine how strong this ability will be. Wow. Anyway, I guess we can check the hero quotes. Yeah, let's check them real quick. Let me just adjust this a bit. And there you go. So let's see the quotes. So selection quote: rekindle the old furnace. Okay. Regular quotes: an iron will must be forged. Backbreaking labor is life's greatest pleasure. Even my beard is angry. Fighting is my first language. Upon upgrading a tower. Just, you know, he just grunts. Because he's cranky, I guess. Good. Beautiful. That quote: I will be fine. Upon respawning, I cannot die and my forge will miss me. Okay, maybe not the best quote I've ever came up with, but still, that was an old design, and I pretty much forgot about it until I accidentally rediscovered it earlier today. So yeah, this is the hero design. Definitely on the OP side, but then again, it was a long time ago, and looking at it from now, it's definitely not balanced hero. I think this hero can be more busted than Ice Cold, just because of how useful he is. He's extremely tanky. He has really good DPS. He can chunk enemies for percent of their max health, and he can make towers be better in every way, shape, and form. You know, we've had stuff like the crossbow fort, which gives one of its abilities gives range and critical strike. We have the melting furnace, which gives bonus damage. This guy is not the same. He gives everything. Every bonus stats gets increased, and one of their abilities becomes enhanced, getting an additional effect. I love this hero. Even though he is unbalanced as AF, I love it. Comment down below, guys, what you think. And speaking of hero designs, do you think I should come back to making fan-made to making hero designs for Kingdom Rush? And as a if I do that, would you like me to review other fan-made hero designs? Because I used to do this in the past, and honestly, I might return to it. So if you like this idea and you wanna see the fan-made hero reviews return, then comment down below, and I'll consider it. So yeah. Well, with that out of the way, that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I appreciate you for sticking around to the end. Subscribe if you want to see more of this content in the future. And while you're at it, drop a like on the video. It means a lot to me. And I will see you in the next video. Until it comes, that was King Rexy. Over and out.